Did we all somehow wake up in 2005? Because the way these rappers have been acting lately, it honestly wouldn't surprise me if we were all stuck in an infinite time loop where the guys wore nothing but baggy tees, durags, and baseball hats tilted precisely at a 40-degree angle. It seems like during the pandemic, some people didn't have anything better to do than to reminisce about that one beef they had with that one person back in 1995. In this case, the Game and 50 Cent, whose decades-long feud had been reignited this year after the Game had a few choice words for 50, G-Unit, and the man behind the madness, Dr. Dre. What is now known as the longest feud in hip-hop history. 50 and his once-upon-a-time protege's relationship had begun to go left in 2005, when 50 had accused Game of being disloyal, ultimately giving the boot to his now former G-Unit teammate just 1 year after the Game had initially joined. With over 100 diss tracks exchanged between the two throughout the years, and a full-blown good old-fashioned studio shootout, it seems like the two's rocky past has come back full circle this time, leaving a diss trail thanks to social media. Long and behold, here we are today, back at square one, just when we thought the battle of the petties had officially been put to rest. So, what was so bad between 50 and the Game that they carry out old studio beef onto the streets and keep at it for decades to come? The Game, 50. Both never minding the business that pays them, but that's neither here nor there. East Coast rap group G-Unit were one of the hottest hip-hop groups of the early 2000s. Similar to groups like the Wu-Tang Clan, G-Unit's legacy is undeniable. Consisting of 50 himself, Tony Yayo, Lloyd Banks, not to get confused with the singer, Young Buck, Olivia Longnot, and Jason, aka The Game, who was the last member to be added to the unit proposed by Dr. Dre himself in order to promote and boost the sales of the Game's upcoming album, The Documentary, which also features collabs with 50. Things almost immediately began to hit the fan shortly after 50 noticed that Dre had prioritized the Game's album over his own upcoming album, The Massacre. His suspicions rang true when he found out that his album had gotten pushed back in favor of the Game's. By the time the Game had shot his music video for Love It or Hate It, also featuring 50, the tension could be cut with a toothpick. During the video shoot, 50 wasn't as active as usual and would even sit in the back instead of the passenger seat during car scenes. Although none of this was necessarily the Game's fault, 50 still chose to feel some type of way, and tension between him and the Game would ensue all the way up until 2005, when 50 had made the boss decision to kick Game out of G-Unit altogether, citing Game's disloyalty toward the group at a time where 50 was beefing with the whole block. Now, it wasn't why 50 booted Game that left Game punching the air, but it was more to show how he did it. During a live radio interview with Hot 97, 50 dissed and dismissed Game, stating that he was no longer a part of the unit and that he, Game, should stop mentioning the group altogether. Apparently, Game thought he was doing 50 a favor by mentioning him and the group during interviews. More specifically, the interview the Game had done on the same station just hours prior to 50's. After Game caught wind of 50's comments, he returned back to Hot 97 to confront 50 and exchange some words and some bullets. Game recalled the incident in which he had run to the Escalades at supersonic speed in the coldest weather New York had to offer. He ultimately made his way to the main corridors, and once he spotted 50, it was on and poppin'. What sounds like to be straight out of a gangster action film, weapons were immediately drawn. Everybody was blasting at everybody, and unfortunately, one of Game's shooters had been shot in the leg. We was shooting, they was shooting, ish was crazy. Me and 50 stared at each other in the eyes with guns drawn. Guns drawn. Two ninjas that was friends and homies and came up in hip-hop together. I don't even know who fired the first shot. I just know we was shooting at each other. And at that moment, everything was in slow motion. It wasn't about nobody else that was there. Even though I had 30 dudes with me, and 50 had 30 dudes with him, it's almost a blessing that only one person got hit, and in the leg, for that matter. 50 and his camp had escaped out the back, and thankfully, no one was seriously injured. If only I could say the same about the next incident. While out and about on a cold New York night, Game and an associate were riding around when somebody pulled up beside them and emptied out a clip straight into their car. Fortunately, Game survived, but unfortunately, the friend he was with succumbed to his injuries. It's been alleged that the person who pulled the trigger was an associate of 50's, and to make matters even worse, it's also been alleged that 50 himself had sent the gunman to take care of the Game. Allegedly. It was also clear that the beef had gone from being about petty drama over album release dates and disloyalty to something much more sinister. By this point, no one even knew why the two were beefing, and I guess they didn't either, because that same year, both sides had made a formal announcement stating that they'd be officially laying their beef to rest. Can you believe all this happened in 2005? Game was playing Kumbaya for now, and the two had begun collaborating once again, but none of that will last long. It wouldn't be too long before G-Unit would stir up trouble, criticizing the Game's street cred and giving him the boot yet again, this time making sure to leave behind a footprint. It was announced the Game would not be featured on any upcoming G-Unit albums or solo projects, and as you'd expect, the Game wasn't taking any of this kindly. He had begun to diss G-Unit as a whole and decided to boycott them, creating a whole campaign going against the group. G-U-Not, a play on words of G-Unit, would routinely be used as a slogan of choice. But wait, there's more. He'd put out a diss track, 300 bars and running, and like clockwork, 50 responded in his true troll-like fashion by displaying Game as Mr. Potato Head in the video for his song, Piggy Bank. After seeing this, Game had a change of heart and wanted to make amends, but 50 just wasn't feeling it. Game just could not be trusted. Maybe his intuition served him well, because not even a week later, the Game had dissed G-Unit yet again at one of his concerts in Australia. On his 2009 track So Disrespectful, off of his Before I Self-Destruct album, 50 said he wasn't holding back and he wasn't lying. He may have quite literally emptied the clip on Game in the past, but this time he'd empty it out metaphorically via his lyrics, reciting, "Come on, Game, you will never be my equal. I'm what you're never gonna be. I'm in that tax bracket you never gonna see." Game had taken yet another shot at reconciliation with 50, but similar to his previous attempts, this too would fall on deaf ears. In his collaborated song with Eminem and Adam Levine, 50 reignited the beef when his verse, Game and Buck, talking about young Buck, can both suck up, fill in the blank. Although the verse had been written 2 years prior, Game wasn't playing no games and would write yet another diss track, just what to do when he does best, and take it all back. In 2013, the Game had created an online petition for a potential G-Unit reunion. This, of course, bringing excitement to fans, who signed and shared it all over the net. But to their disappointment, it would be all for nothing. 50 was not budging. He buckled down during an interview with Power 106 when asked about a possible reunion. 50 let it be known that Game would do anything for clout, and that whenever there was nothing going on in his life, he'd stir up beef in order to generate buzz, but that no longer worked. Unprovoked, Game had released, do I really have to say it? Another diss track off of his 2013 mixtape, OKE, Operation Kill Everything. In the song Hollywood, he utters the line, "Reunite with G Unit, BF50. Now, Jayceon. Fast forward a few years later, the two were spotted at a strip club together somewhere in LA. Game decided to hop on the mic and announce, unprovoked, that he did, in fact, F with 50, and that whatever happened between them happened years ago. Things were calm for a while, but as the saying goes, it was the calm before the storm. As of 2022, the beef has been reignited thanks to a Drink Champs podcast episode. You know, the one where the Game claimed to be a better rapper than Eminem. In the ep, Game had said that Kanye West did more for his career than Dr. Dre ever had, and admitted that Dr. Dre was the one who had unknowingly sparked the beef between him and 50. When the episode was brought to 50's attention, he had this to say. "I think y'all know what happens next." The Game clapped right back, saying he single-handedly ended G Unit's clothing line and the group altogether. Now, Jayceon. After the Game's manager, Whack 100, had disclosed that Game had ghostwritten some of 50's music, 50 responded with a pic of Game at an LA Lakers game being ignored by Interscope co-founder Jimmy Iovine. The back and forth Twitter IG fingers continued, and somehow along the way, 50's current girlfriend, Jamira, aka Cuban Link, was weaponized when Game accused her of sliding in his DMs. Beef sparked out of boredom? Honestly, it seems as if this beef may never end, but if it does, we'll be the first to keep you posted. Is it about time these two made amends? Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below, and stay tuned for more true celebrity stories.